The colony of New Haven was a place where dreams came true. It floated in the vastness of space, nestled within the Orion Arm, a quiet corner of the galaxy far from Earth, but close enough to feel connected. The settlers who called it home had worked hard to build their paradise. They had transformed barren rocks into fertile fields and constructed domes that glowed softly under artificial sunlight. Life there wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. Children played in the streets, farmers tended to crops grown in hydroponic gardens, and families gathered at night to share stories about the stars outside their windows. Governor Rachel Monroe stood on the observation deck of the colony's central hub, gazing out at the expanse of stars beyond the transparent dome above her. She was a tall woman, with graying hair tied neatly into a bun, her face lined with the weight of responsibility. For years, she had overseen the growth of New Haven, guiding its people through challenges both big and small. Today, however, something felt different. A strange tension hung in the air, one she couldn't quite explain. Rachel turned away from the view and walked back toward the control room. Inside, technicians monitored screens displaying data streams from the colony's sensors. Everything seemed normal, or so they thought, but Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. "Anything unusual?" she asked, addressing the lead technician, a young man named Daniel Harper. Daniel shook his head. "No, ma'am. All systems are functioning normally. No anomalies detected." Rachel nodded but didn't respond. Instead, she glanced at the main monitor showing the surrounding area of space. Stars twinkled in the distance, and nearby asteroids drifted lazily along their orbits. Nothing appeared out of place. Still, the unease lingered. It wasn't long before the first sign of trouble arrived. An alarm blared suddenly, startling everyone in the room. Lights flashed red as warning messages scrolled across the monitors. Daniel scrambled to investigate. "We're picking up multiple contacts, approaching fast," he shouted. "They're not responding to our hails." Rachel stepped closer to the screen. Dozens of dots were moving rapidly toward New Haven. At first glance, they looked like meteors or stray comets, but their speed and trajectory suggested otherwise. These weren't natural objects, they were ships. Alien ships. "Raise shields," Rachel ordered calmly, despite the knot forming in her stomach. "Prepare all defensive systems." The technicians obeyed immediately, their fingers flying over keyboards as they activated the colony's outdated defenses. Decades ago, when New Haven was founded, Earth had provided basic protection measures against potential threats. But those systems hadn't been updated since then, and no one expected them to hold up against an actual attack. As the alien fleet drew nearer, details became clearer. The ships were sleek and angular, their surfaces shimmering faintly, as if covered in some kind of organic material. They moved in perfect formation, exuding an aura of precision and purpose. Each vessel radiated power, dwarfing the tiny colony below. Commander Lucas Grant burst into the control room moments later. He was a sturdy man in his late 30s, with short brown hair and piercing blue eyes. His uniform was slightly disheveled, evidence of the urgency with which he'd rushed to the scene. "What's going on?" he demanded. Rachel pointed at the screen. "Alien fleet inbound. Unknown origin. They're not responding to communication attempts." Lucas frowned deeply. "How many?" 72 confirmed so far," Daniel replied without looking up from his console. Lucas cursed under his breath. 72 ships against a single colony? The odds were laughably bad. Even worse, New Haven's defenses consisted of little more than a few automated turrets and a thin energy shield designed to repel micrometeorites. This wasn't going to end well. Before anyone could say anything else, a transmission crackled through the speakers. A deep, resonant voice filled the room, speaking in halting yet understandable English. "This is Overseer Varnak of the Krelos Collective. You have trespassed upon territory claimed by our hive. Surrender now, or face annihilation. Rachel exchanged a glance with Lucas. Neither needed words to convey what they were thinking. Surrender wasn't an option. Not after everything they'd built here. Not after all the sacrifices made to create a new life among the stars. We need to buy time, Rachel said finally. Send a distress signal to Earth. Maybe reinforcements can reach us before she could finish. The first wave of attacks began. Energy beams lanced out from the alien ships, striking the colony's shield with devastating force. Alarms wailed as the barrier flickered dangerously. Technicians shouted updates, their voices overlapping in panicked chaos. Lucas sprang into action. Divert all available power to the shield generators. Fire the turrets, hit anything you can. The colony's meager weapons opened fire, sending bursts of plasma streaking toward the enemy fleet. Most missed entirely, while others bounced harmlessly off the aliens' superior armor. In response, the Krylos intensified their assault. More beams rained down, hammering the shield until it collapsed entirely, without the protective barrier. New Haven lay exposed. Buildings crumbled under direct hits, sending plumes of debris spiraling into the void. Fires erupted in the domes, consuming oxygen and choking survivors trapped inside. Screams echoed through the corridors as panic spread like wildfire. Emma Carter stumbled through the chaos, clutching a makeshift bag containing only the essentials, a water bottle, a change of clothes, and a photo of her family. Her heart pounded in her chest as explosions rocked the ground beneath her feet. Smoke stung her eyes, and the acrid smell of burning metal filled her lungs. She had never imagined her peaceful life would end like this. Get to the escape pods, someone shouted nearby. Emma followed the sound, weaving between fallen debris and injured colonists. Bodies littered the streets, some still moving weakly, others eerily still. She tried not to look too closely. Reaching the evacuation bay, Emma found herself surrounded by terrified people, pushing and shoving to board the last remaining pods. Security officers struggled to maintain order, but the situation was quickly spiraling out of control. Emma spotted Lucas directing operations, his face grim but determined. He barked, pointing at her. Take this pod. Go. Emma hesitated, for a moment, overwhelmed by guilt at leaving others behind. But Lucas shoved her forward, practically throwing her into the cramped capsule. As the hatch sealed shut, she caught one final glimpse of him turning back to help others. Then the pod launched, hurtling away from the dying colony. Through the small window, Emma watched as New Haven burned. Flames consumed the domes, and the once beautiful landscape turned into a wasteland of ash and ruin. Alien ships loomed overhead, indifferent to the destruction they had wrought. Tears streamed down Emma's face as she whispered a silent prayer for the lives lost. Hours passed in silence, as the pod drifted aimlessly through space. Eventually, rescue ships from a neighboring colony arrived, picking up survivors scattered across the debris field. Of the thousands who had called New Haven home, only a fraction remained alive. News of the massacre reached Earth days later, sparking outrage and despair across the planet. Images of the devastated colony circulated on every news channel, accompanied by eyewitness accounts from survivors like Emma. Humanity reeled from the shock of the attack, struggling to comprehend how such a tragedy could occur. But amidst the grief, a spark of defiance ignited. Leaders convened emergency meetings, vowing to hold the Krylos accountable for their actions. Plans were drawn up, resources allocated, and alliances forged. Earth would not stand idly by while its children were slaughtered in cold blood. And so, unbeknownst to the Krylos, humanity began preparing its answer. It would take time, effort, and unimaginable sacrifice. But one thing was certain: the aliens had awakened a sleeping giant. When the time came, humanity would respond not with words, but with overwhelming force. The destruction of New Haven left a scar on humanity's collective soul. The images of the burning colony, the cries of survivors, and the cold indifference of the Krylos fleet haunted people everywhere. On Earth, cities grew quieter as news of the massacre spread. Families gathered around screens in living rooms, watching footage of the attack over and over again. Children asked their parents why such a thing could happen, and adults struggled to find answers. It was a moment that united humanity not in joy or celebration, but in grief and anger. President Daniel Hayes stood at the podium in the United Nations Assembly Hall, his expression grim. Behind him, flags from nations across the globe hung motionless, as if weighed down by the gravity of the situation. Before him sat representatives from every corner of Earth, their faces pale and drawn. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of cameras capturing the historic address. "Today," Hayes began, his voice steady but heavy with emotion, "we face one of the darkest moments in human history. The colony of New Haven, a shining example of our progress and unity, has been destroyed. Thousands of innocent lives have been lost at the hands of an alien force known as the Krylos Collective." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Across the room, some delegates bowed their heads, while others clenched their fists in quiet rage. Hayes continued, his tone growing firmer. "This act of aggression cannot go unanswered. Humanity has always risen to meet its challenges, and today, we must do so again. We will stand together, united, to ensure that no such tragedy happens again." His speech lasted nearly an hour, outlining a bold plan called Project Exodus. It was an ambitious initiative aimed at building the largest military fleet ever conceived. Response so overwhelming that it would leave no doubt about humanity's resolve. Every nation, every corporation, and every individual would contribute to the effort. Resources would be pooled, factories repurposed, and scientists mobilized. Nothing less than total commitment would suffice, as Hayes concluded his address. The room erupted into applause. For the first time in days, there was a glimmer of hope amid the despair. People around the world watched the broadcast, feeling a mix of sorrow and determination. Social media lit up with messages of solidarity, hashtags like #NeverAgain trending globally. Protesters gathered outside government buildings, demanding action. Humanity had been struck, but it refused to stay down. In orbit above Earth, construction of the fleet began almost immediately. Shipyards that once built satellites and cargo vessels were transformed into massive assembly lines. Workers labored around the clock, welding metal, programming AI systems, and testing weapons. Factories on the Moon and Mars joined the effort, their output sent via automated freighters to staging areas in deep space. The scale of the operation was unprecedented, a testament to what humanity could achieve when united by a common cause. Admiral Sarah Bennett oversaw the project from her command. Center aboard the orbital station Liberty Prime, a veteran of Earth's early space conflicts, she carried herself with quiet authority. Her sharp green eyes missed nothing, and her decisions were swift and decisive. Under her leadership, engineers and technicians worked tirelessly to turn raw materials into warships capable of facing the Krylos. One of those engineers was Nathan Cole, a brilliant physicist who had spent most of his career studying propulsion systems. Now, he found himself leading a team tasked with developing cutting-edge weaponry for the fleet. His lab buzzed with activity as researchers tested prototypes of plasma cannons, railguns, and autonomous drones. Each breakthrough brought them closer to matching or even surpassing the technology of their alien adversaries. Nathan often worked late into the night, fueled by coffee and sheer determination. He knew the stakes better than most. Images of New Haven's destruction haunted him, especially the sight of children running from collapsing domes. He couldn't save them, but he could help ensure that no other colonies suffered the same fate. That thought kept him going, even when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. Meanwhile, recruiting centers opened across the globe, drawing in volunteers eager to join the fight. Among them was Alex Reed, a farmer from Iowa who had never imagined leaving his fields behind. But when he saw the footage of New Haven's ruins, something inside him shifted. He signed up the very next day, trading his plow for a uniform. During training, he proved to be a natural pilot, excelling in simulations designed to mimic dogfights in zero gravity. Alex wasn't alone. Thousands of others answered the call, each driven by their own reasons. Some sought revenge for loved ones lost in the attack, while others simply wanted to protect their future. Mia Torres, a sharpshooter from Texas, fell into the latter category. She had grown up hunting with her father, honing skills that made her a valuable asset to the United Earth Defense Force, UEDF. Her aim was deadly accurate, and her instincts razor. In combat drills, she consistently outperformed her peers, earning respect from both instructors and fellow recruits. Training took place primarily on Luna Base, a sprawling facility carved into the moon's surface. Recruits endured grueling physical conditioning, learned advanced combat tactics, and familiarized themselves with the latest military technology. The atmosphere was intense, with everyone aware that failure wasn't an option. Bonds formed quickly among the trainees, forged in the crucible of shared hardship. Alex and Mia became close friends during this time, supporting each other through the toughest moments. Back on Earth, Emma Carter tried to rebuild her life after escaping New Haven. She had been taken to a rehabilitation center on Mars, where counselors helped survivors cope with trauma. At first, Emma struggled to adjust. Nightmares plagued her sleep, and flashbacks triggered panic attacks. But slowly, she began to heal. Talking to others who had lived through the same horror helped her realize she wasn't alone. Eventually, Emma decided to return to work. Her expertise in engineering made her a valuable asset to Project Exodus. She joined a team tasked with designing upgrades for the fleet's shield systems, determined to make sure no one else experienced the vulnerability she had felt during the attack. Working alongside Nathan Cole, she poured her energy into creating defenses strong enough to withstand anything the Krylos might throw at them. As weeks turned into months, progress on the fleet accelerated. Ships rolled off assembly lines at an astonishing rate, each one more advanced than the last. Their sleek designs reflected humanity's ingenuity, blending form and function in ways that inspired awe. Crews assigned to these vessels underwent rigorous training, learning to operate complex systems and coordinate seamlessly with one another. Despite the rapid advancements, challenges remained. Supply chains occasionally faltered, causing delays in production. Some prototypes failed spectacularly during testing, forcing engineers back to the drawing board. And then there were the doubts, whispers of skepticism about whether humanity could truly match the Krylos power. But every setback was met with renewed determination. Failure was not an option. By the end of the 6th month, the fleet numbered over 300,000 ships, with more being constructed daily. Each vessel bore the emblem of the Interstellar Alliance's stylized star, encircled by orbiting rings, symbolizing unity and resilience. Morale soared as people realized just how far they had come in such a short time. News outlets covered the progress extensively, broadcasting updates from shipyards and training facilities. Humanity's spirit burned brighter than ever, fueled by the promise of justice. But even as hope grew, reminders of the cost loomed large. Memorials were erected in cities worldwide to honor those who had perished at New Haven. Survivors like Emma attended dedication ceremonies, laying flowers at the base of statues depicting colonists reaching toward the stars. These acts of remembrance served as a poignant reminder of why the fleet was being built and why humanity could not afford to fail. On the 7th month, Admiral Bennett announced that the first wave of ships would soon depart for the front lines. Dubbed Vanguard Fleet Alpha, it consisted of 10,000 vessels equipped with experimental weapons and manned by elite crews. Their mission was twofold: test the fleet's capabilities in real-world conditions and gather intelligence on the Krylos. If successful, They would pave the way for the full-scale invasion planned for later. The day of departure arrived, marked by solemn ceremonies and heartfelt farewells. Families gathered at spaceports to see off loved ones, tears streaming down their faces. Soldiers hugged their children tightly, promising to return home safely. Engineers who had worked tirelessly on the fleet watched proudly as their creations launched into the void, carrying humanity's hopes with them. As Vanguard Fleet Alpha disappeared into the distance, Earth held its breath. The battle ahead would be fierce, and the outcome uncertain. But one thing was clear: humanity had answered the Krylos challenge with courage. The journey of Vanguard Fleet Alpha into the unknown was both a moment of hope and a leap into uncertainty. The fleet, consisting of 10,000 ships, stretched across space like a glittering river of metal and light. Each vessel hummed with energy as its crew prepared for what lay ahead. Captain Olivia Drake stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eclipse, staring out at the vast expanse of stars through the large viewport. Her hands rested on the railing, fingers drumming lightly against the cold metal. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders, but she also felt a quiet determination. This was humanity's first real step toward confronting the Krylos Collective, and failure was not an option. Inside the ship, activity buzzed around her. Crew members moved swiftly between stations, checking systems, running diagnostics, and ensuring everything was in working order. The air was filled with the soft hum of machinery and the occasional clatter of boots on metal floors. Engineers monitored the engines, making sure they were operating at peak efficiency. Pilots tested thrusters and maneuvering systems, simulating evasive actions in case of enemy fire. Everyone knew their role, and everyone understood the stakes. Back on Earth, people watched the fleet's progress with bated breath. News outlets broadcast live updates, showing footage of the ships as they traveled deeper into space. Experts debated tactics and speculated about the Krylos response. Some believed the aliens would ignore the fleet, dismissing it as insignificant compared to their own power. Others feared the Krylos might launch a preemptive strike, hoping to destroy the fleet before it could reach them. Amidst all the uncertainty, one thing was clear: humanity had taken the first step toward reclaiming its place among the stars. As the days passed, life aboard the fleet settled into a routine. Meals were eaten quickly, conversations were brief, and sleep came in short bursts. Morale remained high, though buoyed by the knowledge that they were part of something greater than themselves. Soldiers trained tirelessly, practicing drills designed to simulate combat scenarios. Pilots honed their skills in virtual simulations, learning how to outmaneuver faster and more agile opponents. Everyone worked together, united by a shared purpose. Captain Drake spent much of her time reviewing intelligence reports and strategizing with her officers. The Krylos were still largely a mystery. Despite the data gathered from the attack on New Haven, their hive mind structure made them unpredictable, and their advanced technology gave them a significant advantage. Drake knew that brute force alone wouldn't be enough to defeat them. They needed to outthink the Krylos, exploiting any weaknesses they could find. One evening, as the fleet drifted silently through the void, Drake called a meeting with her senior staff. Around the table sat people she trusted implicitly: Commander Alex Reed, a former farmer-turned-skilled pilot; Lieutenant Mia Torres, whose sharpshooting skills had earned her a spot on the bridge team; and Dr. Emma Carter, who had joined the mission as a technical advisor. Each brought unique strengths to the table, and Drake valued their input. "We're approaching the edge of Krylos-controlled space," Drake began, leaning forward slightly. "Our primary objective is reconnaissance. We need to gather as much information as possible about their defenses, their movements, and their capabilities. But we also need to be ready for anything. If they engage us, we fight back, but only if necessary. Our goal is survival, not glory." Reed nodded thoughtfully. Their ships are faster and more durable than ours. In a straight-up fight, we'd be at a disadvantage. But we've got better pilots and smarter tactics. That's our edge. Torres added, and don't forget our new weapon systems. Those plasma cannons pack a punch. If we can get close enough, we might stand a chance. Drake smiled faintly. Exactly. Speed, precision, and surprise will be our allies. Let's make sure every crew member knows their role. We can't afford mistakes. Carter chimed in, her voice steady, but tinged with urgency. There's another factor we need to consider: their hive mind. It coordinates their actions perfectly, making them incredibly efficient in battle. But if we can disrupt that connection, even temporarily, it could throw them off balance. Drake glanced at her, intrigued. You think it's possible? It's risque, Carter admitted, but worth exploring. I've been working with Dr. Nathan Cole on some experimental tech designed to interfere with neural signals. If we deploy it strategically, it might give us an opening. Drake considered this for a moment before nodding. Good. Keep working on it, and let me know as soon as you have something viable. As the meeting concluded, the tension in the room lingered. Everyone understood the risks involved, but they also knew there was no turning back. Humanity had already lost too much to retreat now. Several days later, the fleet approached a region of space known as the Proxima Expanse, a dense cluster of asteroids and debris believed to serve as a buffer zone for the Krylos sensors picked up faint traces of alien activity. Scout ships patrolling the area, likely searching for intruders. Drake ordered the fleet to slow down, allowing smaller reconnaissance vessels to move ahead and gather more detailed scans. One of these vessels, piloted by Reed, ventured closer to a group of asteroids where Krylos drones had been spotted. The ship's stealth systems masked its presence, rendering it nearly invisible to detection. Reed guided the craft carefully, his eyes fixed on the sensor readouts. Beside him, Torres manned the weapons console, ready to fire at a moment's notice. Suddenly, the sensors lit up with multiple contacts. A squadron of Krylos drones emerged from behind a massive asteroid, their sleek forms glinting menacingly in the dim starlight. Reed's heart raced, but he kept his focus. He activated the comms link to the main fleet. This is Recon 1. We've encountered enemy units. Request permission to engage. Drake's voice crackled over the line. Permission granted. Take them out quietly. Avoid drawing attention. Reed didn't hesitate. With practiced precision, he maneuvered the ship into position, lining up shots for Torres. Ready? He asked. Ready? She replied, her finger hovering over the trigger. The first shot fired, a bolt of plasma streaking through space and striking one of the drones. It exploded in a burst of light, debris scattering in all directions. The other drones reacted instantly, swarming toward the source of the attack. Reed pushed the throttle forward, weaving through the chaos as Torres fired repeatedly, taking down drone after drone. The skirmish lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. When the last drone was destroyed, Reed exhaled sharply. That's all of them. Returning to the fleet. Well done, Drake said over the comms. Fall back and regroup. We'll analyze the wreckage and see what we can learn. Back aboard the Eclipse, the crew examined data recovered from the destroyed drones. What they found was both fascinating and alarming. The Krylos used a complex network of signals to communicate and coordinate their actions, a system deeply integrated into their hive mind. Disrupting those signals, as Carter had suggested, could indeed cripple their effectiveness in battle. Encouraged by this discovery, Carter and Cole worked tirelessly to refine their experimental tech. They developed a device capable of emitting pulses designed to jam the Krylos neural connections. Testing it on captured drone components proved promising, though they warned that deploying it in a live battle would require extreme caution. Beyond the range of Krylos patrols, skirmishes became more frequent as they probed deeper into enemy territory, each encounter providing valuable insights. The crew grew more confident with every victory, their resolve strengthening. Yet, they also knew the true test lay ahead. Finally, after weeks of careful navigation, the fleet reached the outskirts of the Krylos homeworld. From a distance, the planet looked almost serene, its surface covered in shimmering organic structures that pulsed faintly with inner light. Towers rose like spires, connected by intricate webs of glowing filaments. It was a sight both beautiful and terrifying, a reminder of the civilization they were about to challenge. Drake assembled her officers once more, this time in the war room. Maps and schematics floated holographically above the table, displaying key points of interest on the planet below. "This is it," she said, her voice firm. "We've come too far to turn back now. Our mission is clear. Locate and disable the central hive. Without it, the Krylos will lose their coordination and fall into disarray. Once that happens, the rest of the fleet can finish the job." Reed raised a hand. "What about reinforcements? Shouldn't we wait for them?" Drake shook her head. "Time is not on our side. Every day we delay gives the Krylos more opportunities to strengthen their defenses. No, we strike now while we still have the element of surprise." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Despite the danger, everyone understood the logic. Waiting wasn't an option. With plans finalized, the fleet prepared for the final approach. Shields were raised, weapons armed, and engines primed for maximum thrust. As they moved closer to the planet, tension mounted aboard every ship. Hearts pounded, palms sweated, and breaths came shallow. Humanity's fate hung in the balance, and everyone knew it. And so, with courage and conviction, Vanguard Fleet Alpha plunged into the heart of the Krylos Empire, ready to face whatever awaited them. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: humanity had arrived, and it was here to stay. The final approach to the Krylos homeworld was a nerve-wracking experience for everyone. Aboard Vanguard Fleet Alpha, the ships moved in perfect formation, their engines glowing faintly as they pushed deeper into enemy territory. Ahead of them, the planet loomed larger with each passing moment, its surface a labyrinth of organic structures that seemed alive. Towers twisted upward like roots, reaching for the sky, and rivers of glowing liquid pulsed through channels carved into the ground. It was beautiful, but unnerving, a place both alien and hostile. Captain Olivia Drake stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, her eyes fixed on the main viewport. She could feel the tension radiating from her crew, but she kept her expression calm and focused. "Stay sharp," she said over the comms, addressing the entire fleet. "We're entering their perimeters soon. Expect resistance." Her words echoed through the ships, reaching every pilot, engineer, and soldier. On board the smaller vessels, hands gripped controls tightly, and fingers hovered over triggers. Everyone knew this was the moment they had trained for. The moment humanity would face its greatest challenge yet. As the fleet drew closer, alarms began blaring across the command center. Sensors detected a massive network of defenses surrounding the planet. Thousands of drones patrolled the area, their movements synchronized and precise. Energy barriers shimmered in the distance, forming an impenetrable wall around the Krylos stronghold. It was clear that the aliens were ready for them. Drake turned to Commander Alex Reed, who was stationed at the tactical console. "What do we know about those barriers?" she asked. Reed studied the readings carefully before responding. "They're energy-based, layered, and adaptive. If we hit them directly, they'll just absorb the impact and strengthen. We'll need to find weak points, or disable them entirely." Lieutenant Mia Torres leaned forward, her sharp eyes scanning the data. "What about the jamming tech Carter and Cole developed? Could it work here?" Drake nodded. "It's worth a shot. Emma, how long until the device is ready?" Emma, Carter, seated nearby, adjusted her glasses and glanced up. "It's operational now, but deploying it will be tricky. The signal needs to get close enough to disrupt their systems without being destroyed immediately. We'll have to create a diversion, Drake decided. Alex, prepare a squadron of fighters to draw their attention away from the barrier. Mia, coordinate with Emma to launch the device once the path is clear. Within minutes, a group of fighter ships peeled off from the main fleet, led by Reed himself. Their mission was simple: cause enough chaos to distract the Krylos, while the jamming device did its job. As they approached the barrier, the drones reacted instantly, swarming toward the intruders. Lasers fired from the alien vessels, forcing the pilots to dodge and weave through a storm of deadly beams. Reed gritted his teeth as he maneuvered his ship through the chaos. His training kicked in, allowing him to stay calm under pressure. Keep them busy, he shouted over the comms. Don't let them focus on anything else. Behind him, Torres guided the deployment of the jamming device. A small, unmanned probe launched from one of the larger ships, carrying the experimental tech. It zipped through the battlefield, avoiding enemy fire thanks to its advanced AI navigation system. When it reached the edge of the barrier, it unleashed a pulse of energy designed to interfere with the Krylos neural network. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, cracks began to form in the barrier. The shimmering shield flickered, weakened by the disruption. Cheers erupted across the fleet as the opening widened, creating a gap just wide enough for the ships to pass through. Now, Drake commanded, move in. The fleet surged forward, pouring through the breach like water breaking through a dam. The Krylos scrambled to respond, launching waves of reinforcements to intercept the invaders. Explosions lit up space as plasma cannons roared and missiles streaked across the void. Despite the odds, humanity's forces fought with unmatched determination. Every shot fired, every maneuver executed, carried the weight of countless lives. Lost on New Haven, back on the Eclipse, Drake monitored the battle closely. Her mind raced as she analyzed the situation, searching for opportunities to turn the tide. Focus on disabling their command hubs, she instructed. If we can cut off their coordination, we'll have the upper hand. Reed acknowledged the order and relayed it to the squadrons. Pilots broke off from the main engagement, targeting key locations identified by reconnaissance scans. One by one, the glowing towers on the planet's surface fell silent, their connections severed by precision strikes. The Krylos hive mind faltered, causing confusion among their ranks. But the aliens weren't defeated yet. Overseer Varnak, the leader of the Krylos collective, took direct control of the defense effort. From his position, deep within the central hive, he coordinated a counterattack aimed at overwhelming the human fleet. Massive warships emerged from hidden hangars, their size dwarfing even the largest vessels in Vanguard Fleet Alpha, armed with devastating weapons. They descended upon the intruders like predators hunting prey. Drake watched the new threat materialize on the sensors, her jaw tightening. This is it, she muttered. Prepare for full engagement. The ensuing battle was brutal. The Krylos ships unleashed torrents of energy, obliterating several human vessels in seconds. Crews screamed as their ships exploded, sending debris spiraling into the void. But despite the losses, the humans refused to retreat. They adapted quickly, using their superior agility and teamwork to outmaneuver the lumbering alien warships. Torres proved invaluable during this phase of the fight. Her sharpshooting skills allowed her to pick off critical targets, disabling engines and weapon systems with pinpoint accuracy. Got another one, she shouted triumphantly after firing a missile that struck a Krylos cruiser's power core. The ship erupted in flames, taking several drones with it. Meanwhile, Carter worked tirelessly to maintain the jamming device's effectiveness. The Krylos were fighting back against the interference, attempting to stabilize their neural network. Each time they succeeded, Carter adjusted the frequency of the pulses, keeping them off balance. Sweat dripped down her forehead as she typed furiously on her console, her fingers flying across the keys. On the front lines, Reed led his squadron with unwavering bravery. He darted between enemy ships, luring them into traps set by Allied forces. His quick thinking saved countless lives, earning him praise from both his crewmates and Captain Drake. "You're doing great, Alex," Drake said over the comms. "Keep pushing them back." "I'm giving it everything I've got," Reed replied, his voice strained but determined. As the hours dragged on, the tide of the battle began to shift. The Krylos coordination deteriorated further, leaving their ships vulnerable to attack. Humanity's fleet capitalized on the advantage, striking hard and fast. The once imposing alien armada started to crumble under the relentless assault. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the central hive came into view. It was a colossal structure located at the heart of the planet, its pulsating core visible, even from orbit. This was the source of the Krylos power, the brain, controlling their entire society. Destroying it would cripple them permanently. Drake wasted no time issuing orders. "All units, converge on the hive. Focus all firepower on the core. We end this now." The remaining ships regrouped and charged toward the target, dodging enemy fire and weaving through debris fields left by the earlier battles. Plasma cannons and railguns roared as they unleashed everything they had at the hive. Shields flared brightly, resisting the barrage, but the sheer volume of attacks began to wear them down. Inside the hive, Overseer Varnak realized the gravity of the situation. For the first time in centuries, the Krylos faced the possibility of defeat. Desperation fueled his actions as he ordered every available drone and ship to defend the core. The resulting clash was apocalyptic, with explosions rocking the planets, surface and shock waves rippling outward. Amidst the chaos, Reed spotted an opportunity. A damaged Krylos cruiser drifted near the hive, its weapons offline but its hull intact. "Follow me," he called to his squadron. Together, they flew toward the cruiser, planting explosives on its exterior. Once armed, they retreated, just as the charges detonated, propelling the cruiser straight into the hive's core. The impact was catastrophic. The core shattered, releasing a burst of energy that engulfed the surrounding area. The hive collapsed inward, its glow fading rapidly as the Krylos neural network disintegrated. Ships in orbit lost control, drifting aimlessly as their connection to the hive mind vanished. A hush fell over the battlefield as the reality sank in. The Krylos collective had been defeated. Back on the Eclipse, Drake exhaled deeply, her body sagging slightly with relief. Around her, the crew erupted into cheers, tears streaming down their faces. They had done it. They had avenged New Haven and secured humanity's future among the stars. But Drake knew the cost. Too many lives had been lost, too much sacrificed. As she gazed out at the smoldering remains of the Krylos homeworld, she vowed never to forget the price of victory. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing against even the most formidable foes, but it had also learned the importance of unity, resilience, and sacrifice. And so, with heavy hearts and renewed resolve, Vanguard Fleet Alpha prepared to return home. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity was ready to take its place in. The aftermath of the battle left Vanguard Fleet Alpha in a state of exhaustion. Ships floated silently in orbit around the shattered remains of the Krylos homeworld, their hulls scarred and blackened from the fierce fight. The once mighty alien empire lay in ruins, its central hive reduced to a lifeless husk. For the first time in months, the crew aboard each vessel could breathe a little easier. Though the weight of what they had accomplished, lost, still hung heavy in the air, Captain Olivia Drake stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, staring at the planet below. Her uniform was wrinkled, her face pale with fatigue, but her eyes remained sharp and focused. Around her, technicians and officers moved quietly, tending to repairs and assessing damage reports. The silence was palpable, broken only by the occasional hum of machinery or soft beeping of consoles. It was a moment of reflection, a chance to process everything that had happened. "Casualty report," Drake said finally, breaking the quiet. Lieutenant Mia Torres stepped forward, holding a tablet in her hands. Her voice was steady but tinged with sorrow. "We've lost 32 ships, Captain. Approximately 1,200 personnel are confirmed dead, with another 300 missing and presumed lost." Drake closed her eyes for a moment, letting the numbers sink in. Each one represented a life cut short: a parent, sibling, friend, or child who would never return home. She swallowed hard before speaking again. "Send condolences to their families. Make sure every name is recorded. They deserve to be remembered." "Yes, ma'am," Torres replied softly. Drake turned to Commander Alex Reed, who was seated nearby. His expression was grim, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of his console. "What's the status of the fleet?" she asked. Reed straightened slightly, clearing his throat. "Most ships sustained moderate damage, but nothing critical. Repairs are underway, and we should be able to regroup within 24 hours. Fuel reserves are low, though we'll need to resupply before heading back to Earth." Drake nodded. "Understood. Divert resources where needed. I want the fleet ready to move as soon as possible." As orders were carried out, Emma Carter joined Drake on the bridge. She looked weary, dark circles under her eyes, betraying the long hours she'd spent maintaining the jamming device during the battle. "The Krylos network is completely offline," she reported. "Their remaining ships are adrift, and there's no sign of organized resistance." "Good work," Drake said, offering a faint smile. "You and Dr. Cole made this victory possible." Carter shook her head modestly. "It wasn't just us. Everyone played a part. We couldn't have done it without the pilots, engineers, and soldiers risking their lives out there." Drake placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's true. But don't sell yourself short. Humanity owes you a debt we can never repay." For a brief moment, Carter allowed herself to feel proud of what they had achieved. Then reality set and the cost of the mission weighed heavily on her conscience. She excused herself and returned to her station, determined to keep working until the fleet was fully operational. Meanwhile, across the ships, survivors began to share stories of the battle. In mess halls and corridors, people gathered to talk about their experiences, finding solace in shared grief and triumph. Some recounted daring maneuvers during dogfights, while others spoke of last-minute escapes from exploding vessels. Tears flowed freely, but so did laughter, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, humanity found ways to persevere. On one of the smaller cruisers, a young engineer named Kyle Bennett sat alone in his quarters, staring at a photo of his family. He had joined the mission, hoping to make a difference, but now he wondered if it had been worth it. 1,200 lives, gone including 2 close friends, just to destroy an alien race that might never have attacked again. Doubts crept into his mind, gnawing at him like a persistent ache. In another part of the fleet, a medic named Sarah Lynn tended 2 wounded soldiers in the infirmary. Bloodstains covered her scrubs, and her hands trembled slightly as she stitched up a deep gash on a pilot's arm. Despite her exhaustion, she worked tirelessly, driven by a sense of duty to save as many lives as possible. When the last patient was stable, she collapsed onto a chair, burying her face in her hands. For the first time since the battle began, she let herself cry. Back on the Eclipse, Drake addressed the entire fleet over the comms system. Her voice was calm but filled with emotion. "Today, we achieved something extraordinary. Against overwhelming odds, we defeated an enemy that sought to destroy us. But let us not forget why we fought. We fought for New Haven, for every man, woman, and child who lost their lives because of the Krylos cruelty. We fought for Earth, for our colonies, and for the future of humanity." Her words resonated deeply with everyone listening. Soldiers paused mid-task to listen, their faces etched with pride and pain. Engineers stopped welding to wipe away tears. Pilots exchanged nods of understanding, knowing they had all played a role in securing this hard-won victory. "But our work isn't done," Drake continued. The galaxy is vast, and dangers still lurk beyond the horizon. We must remain vigilant, united, and prepared to defend what we hold dear. For now, rest, heal, honor those we've lost. And when the time comes, we will rise again together. Cheers erupted throughout the fleet, echoing through cramped cabins and sprawling hangars. People clapped, hugged, and raised makeshift cups in celebration. The mood shifted from somber reflection to cautious optimism. They had faced the worst and emerged victorious. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew they could overcome them. Over the next 24 hours, repair crews worked non-stop to patch up damaged ships. Welding torches flared brightly against the darkness of space, sealing breaches and reinforcing weakened hulls. Technicians replaced blown-out circuits, recalibrated sensors, and refueled engines. Supplies were distributed efficiently, ensuring every ship had enough resources to make the journey home. Emma Carter collaborated closely with Nathan Cole to analyze data collected during the battle. Their findings revealed crucial insights into the Krylos technology and tactics, information that would prove invaluable for future conflicts. "We need to document everything," Cole insisted. "This knowledge could save lives someday." Carter agreed, typing furiously as she compiled notes and diagrams. Despite her weariness, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The destruction of the Krylos didn't mean the end of threats to humanity, it meant the beginning of a new era. An era where vigilance and innovation would determine survival. As repairs neared completion, Drake convened a final meeting with her senior staff. Around the table sat familiar faces: Reed, Torres, Carter, and others who had become pillars of strength during the mission. Each bore signs of physical and emotional strain, yet their determination remained unwavering. "Our next step is clear," Drake began. "We return to Earth and deliver news of our success. But more importantly, we bring hope. Humanity has proven itself capable of standing toe-to-toe with any adversary. That message needs to reach every corner of the globe." Reed leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Do you think the Krylos are truly gone? Or could they rebuild?" "It's unlikely," Carter interjected. "Their hive mind was their greatest strength, their greatest weakness. Without it, they're disorganized and vulnerable. Even if remnants survive, they won't pose a significant threat anytime soon," Torres added. "Still, we should stay alert. There might be other threats out there." "This victory doesn't mean we're safe forever." Drake nodded. "Exactly. Which is why we'll continue strengthening our defenses and expanding our reach. Project Exodus isn't over, it's only just begun." With plans finalized, the fleet prepared to depart. Engines roared to life, casting a warm glow across battered hulls. As the ships aligned themselves for the jump to hyperspace, a sense of unity pervaded the ranks. These men and women weren't just soldiers or engineers, they were pioneers, trailblazers carving a path for humanity's destiny among the stars. When the fleet entered hyperspace, leaving the ruins of the Krylos homeworld behind, a collective sigh of relief swept through the ships. The journey home would take weeks, but no one minded. They had earned this respite, a chance to heal, reflect, and dream of brighter days ahead. On board the Eclipse, Drake retreated to her quarters, collapsing onto her bunk. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to relax. Sleep came quickly, carrying her into dreams of peaceful skies and smiling faces. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she let herself rest, and so Vanguard Fleet Alpha sailed toward Earth, carrying not only the scars of war, but also the promise of a new dawn. Humanity had risen to meet its greatest test, proving that courage, ingenuity, and unity could overcome even the most daunting adversaries. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity was ready to claim its place not as conquerors, but as guardians of peace and progress.